New homeless laws come into force today, which would mean local councils will have to offer more help to people at risk. The Homelessness Reduction Act puts a renewed focus on bringing down the numbers of homeless and rough sleepers, which have risen dramatically in recent years. Let's speak now to Tom Shaw, who is the Labour councillor in charge of housing at Luton Borough Council. Good morning to you, Tom.
Morning.
First of all, what do you make of this new piece of legislation then mean for councils like Luton, where there is a big homeless problem?
Well, all it is fetching best practice up and down the country is all being put into one law. We already used an awful lot of it, what was in place already in Luton. But the one big problem, well, two big problems. One is the government said every council's got to do this 56-day duty, but give us no extra money to do it. And secondly, Garvey, the housing minister, actually gave the Treasury 70 million back this year, saying they didn't need it for housing. They're giving us no extra money to build anything.
But that's the thing, Tom. You say there's no money, but the government are making £77 million of extra funding available. Why isn't that enough?
£77 million amongst 560 councils up and down the country. Last year alone in Luton, we spent £400,000. This winter just gone on different types of accommodation and everything else. If it weren't for the hostels and the emergency, opening their doors as emergency accommodation, we'd have had the same problems as other towns had. But what we've got to do now, we've got to employ a lot more staff because everyone's got this right, but they're giving us no money to actually employ those staff. Most of that money is disappearing into London.
Luton won a joint bid, didn't they, for funding with Bedford, Central Beds and Milton Keynes last year. That was over £500,000. How was that spent then? On wages for staff?
Homeless street pastors, street watch, open the doors of the hostels, make sure the emergency night shelter was open every night. Interviewing people, find out why they were homeless. That's what we need to do. It's not just the homelessness. This is the reasons behind it. If someone's suffering from mental health problems, it's got to be a joint agency approach to homelessness. 77 million, work out yourself, among 500 odd councils, isn't a lot of money.
Why are they homeless generally?
Oh, it can be an awful lot of reasons. Unemployment, losing the properties, repossessions. You've got another thing starting today on benefits, where older people what have been on interest payment benefits, where they've had it back and now going to be taking out a loan. That benefit will class as a loan against those properties. What happens when the loan's bigger than the value of the property? There's a lot of complex reasons for homelessness, and what we found is one of the biggest ones is repossessions, family breakup, and then suffering from mental health problems. And that's what I'm saying. It's no good just saying to housing, you've got to do this. It's got to be a joint effort right across the board from community mental health people, housing, finance people, because one of the big things we do in Luton is a rent deposit scheme for people to be able to go and rent in the private sector. But we spend £100,000 on that a year. So, ratepayers' money. But it's better than having people on the streets.
Is it as bad as it's ever been, do you think, Tom?
Yes, it's getting worse. It's worse than it's ever been now, there's no doubt about it. The amount of the benefit cuts have forced a lot of young people out onto the streets. One of the things is, we've got a lot of hostel accommodation, some very good partners in Luton. But even they're struggling. You had one good bus 8-9 months ago, Lamp, in the town because it just couldn't make it financially stack up. And I'm chair of a hostel that has about 60 youngsters and older people in it at the moment, and we're struggling because of the benefit cuts.
Okay. You mentioned there the lack of government funding, and in a moment we'll be speaking to a local charity, but I want to ask you, could you do some of this work by coordinating with charities more?
We do. Noah, Jim O'Connor, Noah, Mary Seacole, Signpost, they all open their doors when we had the last bit of bad weather to take people off the streets. Noah, who's one of our main coordinators of the homeless money, do an absolutely brilliant job. We couldn't fault them. But they can only do what they've got the money for. And at the end of the day, they're all charities. They're not allowed to, we can't let them go bust. We need more money. We need more expertise. More than anything else, we need the money for the accommodation, because it's no good giving people all this duty and cutting the benefits at the same time. The landlord wants their rent paying, but the benefits won't cover the rent anymore.
Okay. Tom, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Listening to that is Jim O'Connor, Chief Exec of Bedfordshire homeless charity Noah Enterprises. Good morning to you, Jim. You heard Tom there. You do a fabulous job, but you need the money. Will this new law help?
Good morning, Andy. The new law is a step in the right direction. Why is it a step in the right direction? Because it's concentrating on prevention. So if you can imagine homelessness as a tap turned on, the tap has been turning more fully on through things like benefit sanctions, universal credit, and most lately through the market and the increase in market rents. So here, if this initiative is carried through, is an attempt to turn the tap and begin to turn the tap off. Yes, of course, resource and the availability of resources is a factor. But what I would say as well is that it appears to be the beginning of the penny dropping and the beginning of a coherent strategy, because just last week on the 30th of March, the government also announced what they have called the Rough Sleeper Initiative, whereby they say that they will invest £30 million in those areas which have got the highest number of rough sleepers. That would include Luton and Bedford, and if that is the case, that is welcome news. They've also redirected, shall I say, an existing fund, which is called the Flexible Homelessness Support Grant, which local councils, I believe, currently get. But it's focused up until now on remedying the problem when it arises, i.e. when homelessness arises. And now again, that's focused on prevention. And the final thing I would say in terms of coherence is that a homelessness reduction task force was introduced probably about 6 months ago. Can't remember exactly the date. And that on that task force are, shall I say, experts in the field of leaders in homelessness charities as well as others. And it's a cross-party, cross-parliament group, which is encouraging. So there appears to be a concerted effort. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and the eating will be, is the finance there to make it work?
That's the thing, isn't it? Because, like you've just said, the problem is getting worse. And then this new law means you have to look after more people. Then won't it just get worse for you and other charities who are already under massive pressure?
It won't make it worse per se. The circumstances that have led to homelessness that Tom very eloquently described, mental health, addiction, relationship breakdown, is on the increase. People are under enormous pressures, and it's having its consequence. This is a step in the right direction to help remedy, but that remedy will only be effective if the actual resource is there. Now, again, an encouraging part, and all your listeners may be encouraged by this and should be, I think, is the concerted effort that we're making locally, certainly in Luton, where the council are working with partners, including ourselves, to try and effect the best remedy that we can with the scarce resources available to us. And we've been involved with the council on, for example, migration support, which is one factor in the homelessness spectrum. Another one, and a big one, is mental health. And again, the government have on this cross-party group, have the intention of other departments becoming involved. And it's very encouraging that the Department of Health and Social Care are getting involved and intend, I believe, to put mental health professionals on the streets along with outreach groups such as NOAA's to effect a remedy. And this is not new. This has happened and been proven to work in the past.
Jim, just final question. Tom wanted more money. Do you need more money?
We desperately need more money. We are working at almost capacity now. We're on the most threadbare of resources, and it's a tribute to our staff and to our volunteers that we can accomplish what we do with so little, but so much more could be done, and I mean needs to be done, not a nice to do, has to be done. The effect of having our fellow citizens on the streets has an impact and effect on us all. There's a certain great deal of truth in the saying that no man is an island. It affects every one of us, and we all have in our hearts a remedy. We should have a remedy for that, or need and want a remedy. And certainly in the programmes that I've been on in 3 counties, where members of the public have commented, the compassion is there.
Well, thank you, Jim. That was Jim O'Connor from Bedfordshire-based homeless charity Noah Enterprises, and before that, the Labour councillor Tom Shaw, who's in charge of housing in Luton. It's 17 minutes past 8. It's time now for the travel.